Rev up your engines. It is a brand new 2025 Honda scooter. My Yamaha weighs 650 pounds. When it falls down, you need a chain, rope, and something to pick it up with. This thing weighs less than 300 pounds. Yeah, you don't pick it up and put it in your pocket, right? But it falls over, you can get it up. And it is so much easier to handle. He even puts it on the back of his motorhome. Now, if you've never driven a motorcycle, this also has a really big advantage. It's got a throttle, brakes just like a motorcycle. That is a brake. That is not a clutch. This, on the other hand, is a clutch. You shift the vehicle and the shifter gear down there, so there's no shifting. It's automatic. Anybody can get on one of these things. If you've ever been on a scooter, it's around here, you got a Block Island, you ride scooters around, you can drive one of these things. You don't have to worry about shifting gears, worry about a big heavy thing that you got to carry around. They handle so nimbly because they don't weigh that much, but they still have a lot of motorcycle features. You can see they got a nice suspension system, disc brake in the front, motorcycle style tires on it. It's got Showa dual shocks on the back. It's all automatic. You don't have to shift anything. Now this baby's got 16 horsepower. Okay, this has 147 horsepower, right? You can get in a lot of trouble with that. With less horsepower, it's much harder to get into trouble. Now here it's over 50 cc, so you do have to have a motorcycle license. But if you take your motorcycle test with one of these, it's pretty easy to pass. They're so easy to ride around. They don't weigh much. You don't have to worry about, oh, shifting, put in gear, clunk and shake. It just runs when you pull the throttle. Now, this is a Honda ADV 160, 160cc. They're not giving them away. You paid $4,500. It's a Honda. These things are going to last basically forever. This isn't like old ones that were carbureted and the carburetors would clog up because you didn't use them enough. It's a fuel-injected vehicle. So you're not going to have any problems with it. If you don't drive it all that much, it's not going to get the carburetor clogging up and you got to put fuel stabilizer and crap like that. It's a fully fuel injected vehicle. Fuel's right here, simple to get to, kind of like my John Deere tractor. And while you're filling it up, they were smart enough. There, you're not going to lose your cap. It's got a little storage bit and then it goes back on. It's a Honda, pretty much. They've thought of everything. It's got the windscreen that's adjustable up or down if you want to put it up a little bit higher. And of course, if you live in a place like Rhode Island, you don't have to wear a helmet, but you're going to get wind all over the place. So you'd want to put it up as high as you possibly could. Now, people might say, okay, well, these things, how fast can they go? So many people I know want to ride around a little scooter, but they're afraid of the weight, and they're also afraid of, gee, I really don't know how to drive a standard transmission. And since it's so small, even though it's got a small amount of horsepower, it's still got plenty of acceleration. You're not going there and people are honking at you because you're in the way. They're plenty zippy enough for any place. The speed limit is up to 60 miles an hour. I mean, they'll go a little bit faster, but you don't want to push it. It's plenty fast for any normal road that anybody's driving around. It's got an alarm, but it's a keyless ignition system, so you don't have to worry about messing around with losing your key. Now, as you can see, it's got a nice center stand if you ever have to mess around with a tire. Now, I gotta say, it's a lot of fun. Now, with that automatic transmission, it's kind of like an old motorboat. It even sounds like an old motorboat. You're going and you get where you're going. It's got enough get up and go. Of course, it's not a racing machine, but for older people and people who say I want to learn how to drive something like this, especially in an urban situation, hey, this thing would be an awful lot of fun. Check it out. It's got a tone ring. It even has ABS brakes. Check it out. It's got interesting mirrors on it too. I gotta say, this thing's a whole bunch of fun. Now, he added the mirrors because he's a large guy and it wouldn't go by his shoulder. So as in any Honda product, there's aftermarket for these things too. You can customize them to your heart's content if you want. And I do have to say, the seat that he put on, hey, it's an excellent seat. You can see it's called Wolfline. Fit on perfectly fine. He used to like the Corbin seats, but they cost a lot more, and personally he said these are more comfortable. Get all kinds of information on your computer. Everything's digital these days. And with this setup, it's even got a parking brake on it. I mean, that is pretty cool. Look at it from the front. Hey, it looks like a racing bike. Now, it is not a racing bike, but it looks like one, and you can have an awful lot of fun on one of these things. It doesn't have little baloney skin tires. It's got real serious tires in the front and in the back. It's got a gigantic space inside for carrying stuff. You're going to the beach or whatever. There's a lot of space. So if you think a big old 650-pound motorcycle with 147 horsepower is just too much for you, they run forever, and being a Honda, they have decent resale value too. So if you get tired of it, something happens, it's not like you just blew your wad on a piece of junk. You can sell it for pretty much what you paid for if you take care of it and don't wreck it, of course. They are two wheels. They're a little bit harder than driving four-wheel vehicles. But with the light weight of this, hey, you can have a lot of fun on something that's probably never going to break down on you. It gets about 100 miles a gallon, so your gas bill's going to be low. Automatic transmission, anti-lock brakes, comfy ride, doesn't weigh too much. Yeah, it's a nice little toy for not all that much scratch, considering what things cost these days. It costs about 1/10 of the average American car. So you can buy 10 of these instead of one car. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Now, if you wonder about Toyota's quality going down, it actually is somewhat. Here's an email from another mechanic. He sent it to me. Kylie says, Scotty, I work at a shop and I just did an oil change on a 2023 Toyota Tacoma with 10,000 miles on it. The transmission was already leaking. At first I thought it was from the transfer case as the fluid was dripping off, until I noticed it was seeping where the seal of the transfer case meets the transmission. 10,000 miles and the transmission system is starting to leak already. You never used to see that with Toyotas. I've seen them with 300,000 miles on them and the transmissions still aren't leaking. That were serviced and had the fluid and filter changed every once in a while to keep it clean. If you don't, the fluid gets dirty, and then dirt is friction that'll eat the seals, then they'll start leaking, right? Well, there's no way a seal should be leaking at 10,000 miles. Quality problems. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I see it. Other mechanics see it. And it's sad because they used to be really tight, and now, hey, they're letting things slide. So if I were you, Toyota, I'd start looking around and what are you guys doing wrong? Plus, realize, okay, that 2023 Tacoma, where was it made? It was made in Mexico. What made in Japan wasn't made in San Antonio where they used to make them, because they moved all the production down to Mexico, the land of poor quality control. Now you think buying a used car is a gamble. Well, this guy bought a used ship for $1 million on Craigslist. Chris Wilson bought this giant ship and he was going to do it over, make it into a museum, right? And he says he spent over $1 million and now it's sitting, sinking. He claims he sold it to somebody else, so it's not his problem anymore. And the city that it's sitting in, next to, in the water, is mad because they're tired of having these junky clunkers sitting there. There are other ships there that are also sinking. I guess it was an area where people took their junky old ships to and sold them to fools that thought they were going to fix them up. Now, as they say, the happiest day of a captain is the day he buys a ship and the day he sells his ship. In this case, he spent over a decade trying to fix the stupid thing, gave up, and supposedly sold it to somebody else. People did research. They can't even find who actually owns the thing now. And where it is, if they want to move it, turns out it's in fresh water, and it would cost about $1 million to dredge it out so they could get it deep enough to get the ship out, if it would even float, because it is sinking, right? Poor Mr. Wilson says, I poured my life savings into this. Well, not a smart move there. You think used cars are bad? Think about buying a used ship for $1 million. Don't you think it's going to have problems? He tried fixing it, but hey, you know, they rust, they rot, they're just sitting there. His idea of turning it into a museum. I've seen ship museum stuff. They almost all fail because they cost too much money, unless the taxpayers are behind it. The big battleship Texas and Houston, they've moved it and they're doing it over, but they had public money and they had all kinds of fundraising to fix the thing up. One person buying one of these ships, they're out of their minds. He moved it all around and ended up at this Herman and Helen's Marina. Well, that closed down a few years ago, so the marina's closed down, but this old rotting hulk is still sitting there. He tried to restore it. He said, I'd gotten quite a way. I think we had 10 areas solidly restored and refurnished meticulously. 10 areas. Realize there's hundreds of areas on this giant ship that he bought. Then things got worse because there's this military tugboat that was in the same marina. I guess this guy liked renting space out to old junky boats, and it sank and created a pollution hazard. Diesel fuel got all over the place, and all the locals got mad about it, and then his rusting hulk started sinking in the same area. Now he claims he sold it to somebody else, so it's not his problem anymore, and that's the problem with these old junky things, right? It's bad enough you got a neighbor's got a junk car, it's been sitting there forever. Sometimes you can get homeowners associations to force them to get rid of the stupid junker car, but when you got a boat that big, boy, that's a big problem. He was smart enough to sell it to somebody else, so it's not his problem anymore, but it's certainly the area's problem with a sinking hulk that who knows who actually owns it, and it's just sitting there rotting away. So used boats, they're even worse than used cars. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.